willingness to serve as the mediator, and President Zelaya told me he would agree, and the de facto caretaker president, Micheletti, has said he would agree. So we're hoping that the mediation process will begin in Costa Rica very soon, and that the parties will put everything on the table, and that we will have a peaceful resolution to this very unfortunate situation.
For the Obama administration, what would you consider the most sensitive topic regarding Latin America?
I think that there are so many issues that join us together as neighbors in this hemisphere. And we are concerned about the economic situation. We want to help Latin America and individual countries be able to handle the economic global recession. We would like to get economic growth going again and have it more equitably distributed so that more people have a chance to lift themselves and their children out of poverty. We are concerned about the ongoing threat to sovereign governments from criminal cartels, the narco-traffickers and the gangs and the other elements like militias that support these criminal organizations pose a grave threat to the stability and sovereignty and democracy of nations in our hemisphere.
If I mention to you issues like separation of power, human rights, political freedom, freedom of speech, civil and political rights, which one would you consider the weakest or the most fragile those days in Latin America?
Well, you have just listed many of the most important concerns that we have about our hemisphere. We think it's imperative that people's rights be respected, that there be separation of powers, and that different institutions within countries' governments have clearly defined roles that they are able to exercise. We support freedom of expression throughout our hemisphere. We are against the arbitrary use and abuse of power that would lead to political prisoners being confined, because everything that you have mentioned is part of what makes up a vibrant democracy. Democracy is not just about elections. Democracy is about how governments are organized, whether they are able to protect the rights of minorities, whether people of different political persuasions have the right to speak out without fear of being persecuted, whether there's an independent judiciary and an independent press. All of these are parts of what make democracies dynamic and lasting. So whenever one of those is under attack, others are often under attack as well.
Considering that freedom of speech is a duty in the development of institutional order and the democratic practice in Latin America, what would be an official U.S. call if our government, the Venezuelan government, shut down permanently an independent media, and it continues to chase journalists both legally and by official return?
Well, let me say that for the United States, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the press is a fundamental value. Now, I have been in politics for a very long time, and I probably have been subjected to as much press criticism as anyone you can find. And yet I know that this is an important part of our democracy. You know, when you're in politics sometimes and you think you're trying to do what is right for the people who you represent, it is easy to look at anyone who criticizes you as being out of bounds and that they have no right to do that. But you cannot let the political concerns of any party or candidate or elected official undermines the freedom of expression, because at the end of the process, whoever is elected and whoever is in office needs constructive criticism. Otherwise, it's like you're talking to yourself. Am I doing a good job? Oh, yes, you're doing a good job, you know. That's not a way to run a democracy. So we are very supportive of the freedom of speech, press, the media, individuals, political parties. And I do think that in your country, like other countries, there has to be protection for the press against political opposition.
We are living in a multipolar world. We see new political alliances and new economical partnerships. In this regard, how do you perceive the liaison between Iran and Venezuela?
Well, I think that we have seen in the last weeks that Iran has not respected its own democracy. It has taken actions against its own citizens for peacefully protesting what they viewed as irregularities in the voting process. And I think it is, not a very smart position to align oneself with a regime that is being rejected by so many of their own people. We obviously are concerned about Iran's regime, the pursuit of nuclear weapons, which would be very destabilizing in the Middle East and beyond, the support for terrorism that Iran still pursues. We are willing to engage, so we would never tell another country you cannot do business with, the regime of Iran in order to figure out ways of helping to change their behavior. But we think it is not in the best interest of the world to be doing business with Iran to promote the regime. That is not smart. And so even though we are cautiously pursuing a policy of engagement, we are doing it with our eyes open. And we understand that given the problems that Iran has just demonstrated, it may not be possible, in which case we would ask the world to join us in imposing even stricter sanctions on Iran to try to change the behavior of the regime.
Talking about business, if your administration satisfied with our legal framework to secure and protect the American investment in Venezuela?
Well, we believe that there needs to be a dialogue between the United States and Venezuela on a range of issues. As you know, we have returned our ambassador to Venezuela. We have been pleased to receive an ambassador from Venezuela because we want to have that kind of dialogue. We want to be able to discuss what we view as concerns, and one of them is the legal order for doing business in Venezuela. We think that Venezuela, like many countries, can benefit, as we do in our own country, from foreign investment, from people bringing in capital to improve business and the climate for business. And we would like to see a better relationship between our two countries.
Nowadays in Latin America, we are facing a new challenge because we have president elect by the people trying to change their law in order to stay in power, which at the end, in my opinion, it weakens their institution and minimizes the balance of power.
Well, as a general principle, I agree that anyone who stays in power for too long, even if they are initially elected in a free and democratic election, runs the risk of taking on too much power. That is not good for a democracy. And part of what we hope we will see over the next months in Venezuela is a recognition that you can be a very strong leader and have very strong opinions without trying to take on too much power and trying to silence all your critics.